I walked into my apartment, and everything was gone. The furniture, the photos, the little stupid cactus plant she always forgot to water, gone. No note. No explanation. Just a cold, hollow silence that told me everything I needed to know. And then my phone buzzed. Blocked. No calls. No texts. No emails. She'd erased me like I was a typo in her life story. But here's the part she didn't know. She might have taken the couch, the TV, the blender, hell, even the damn shower curtain. But she forgot one thing. I was still on her payroll. See, my name's Jacob Foster. I'm 42. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've been in IT consulting for almost 2 decades. I don't wear fancy suits. I don't post on Instagram. But if there's a system running your company, chances are I know how to build it or break it. When I met her, I wasn't some heartbroken teenager. I was a grown man with steady work, quiet habits, and a simple life. I didn't need fireworks. I needed real. And for a while, I thought she was. We built something together, at least, that's what I believed. She had the charm, the vision, the fire. I had the patience, the skills, the backbone. I was the guy behind the screen, fixing bugs, securing her databases, organizing her client files while she smiled for the press and pitched to angel investors. No spotlight for me. No credit. Just long nights and quiet pride. Until that morning, when I came home to nothing. Except a draft in the air and a notification that said, "You've been removed from this conversation." That's when it hit me. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a fight. It was a plan. She cleaned me out, locked me out, and moved on. But she made one mistake. She thought this was over. She didn't realize I still had access to everything. And she never changed the passwords I built. It started simple. A message on LinkedIn. She was looking for someone to set up a CRM and automate her product orders. I replied. We scheduled a Zoom call. She smiled, I smiled, and just like that, a routine business inquiry became something more. Her name was Vanessa Blake. She was 34, sharp as hell, and already on her second startup. A skincare brand she said was for women who never wanted to shrink themselves. She was confident, driven, funny in that effortless way that makes you forget time. And I was smitten. Quietly, of course. At first, it was strictly work. I managed her back-end systems, cleaned her database, set up invoice automations. She always paid on time. Said little thank you messages with smiley faces. And then, one day, she asked if I wanted to grab coffee, not on Zoom. The first time we met in person, she wore this bright yellow jacket that didn't match anything else she was wearing. She didn't care. She owned it. We talked for 3 hours. Coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into dinner. And before I knew it, we were spending weekends together. Then weeks. Then months. We moved in within a year. I'd been in love before. But with Vanessa, it felt earned. Like I was finally enough for someone who didn't need me, but chose me anyway. I was proud to stand beside her. She gave off this energy, like the whole world was a dare she planned to win. And I supported her every step of the way. While she pitched her business to investors, I was editing her slides at midnight. While she traveled for partnership meetings, I was testing her servers, making sure the site never crashed. And when she launched her viral product, some organic serum with sea kelp or something, I stayed up 48 hours straight to handle the traffic load. She called me her wizard behind the curtain, her stability, her home. We had inside jokes, a shared Spotify playlist. We adopted a cat, named him Pixel. We even talked about marriage once. Not in a dramatic, down-on-one-knee way. Just over takeout. She said, "You know, I've never felt this safe with anyone. You're like a firewall, but warm." And I believed her. I believed all of it. But then, things shifted. Not all at once, just quietly, subtly. She got busier. Her replies got shorter. She started traveling without telling me until the last minute. When I'd ask questions, she'd brush them off. "Just business. Nothing to worry about." I remember this one time. I brought up something I saw in her email inbox. She snapped, "Why are you spying on me?" I wasn't. I'd just noticed an event invite pop up while troubleshooting her Gmail syncing issue. She apologized later. Said stress made her edgy. Said she was overwhelmed. Said she needed space. So I gave it. Because that's what you do when you love someone. But the space kept growing. And in that space, I began to hear echoes. Whispers of doubt. Questions I didn't want to ask. Why was she always on her phone, but never texting me? Why did her Instagram suddenly stop showing up on my feed? Why did she start using a second laptop? I told myself not to overthink it. She was building a company. She was exhausted. She was doing this for us, right? Then one night, we were watching TV, and she got a text. Her phone lit up, and she instinctively turned it face down. It was such a small thing. Barely even a moment. But it stuck. Burned into my brain like a splinter under skin. Still, I said nothing. Because denial is comfortable. Because it's easier to keep the illusion alive than admit you've been living in a fantasy. I kept telling myself, "She loves me. She's just tired. This will pass." But deep down, I knew something was changing. And what I didn't realize back then was this. She wasn't just pulling away from me. She was preparing to disappear. I didn't ask questions anymore. And she didn't offer answers. Our conversations got thinner. The laughter faded. The little shoulder touches and forehead kisses disappeared like a deleted file. Her business was taking off, she said. She needed to travel more. Longer stays. New clients in Miami, LA, Denver. Sometimes she'd send photos. Conference halls, hotel lobbies, airport lounges. But something always felt too staged. I noticed the timestamps were off. She'd post an airport story on Instagram, while her calendar said she had a meeting in Charlotte that same morning. Small inconsistencies. Nothing conclusive. But they crawled under my skin. I started paying attention, quietly. I checked her shared Google Calendar. She'd stopped updating it. Her browser history? Cleared daily. She started locking her main laptop, the one I had configured myself. Even Pixel, our cat, started avoiding her. One day, she left her phone on the counter while she was in the shower. It buzzed. A message preview popped up from a contact saved as just R. It said, "Can't wait to fall asleep next to you again." I stared at it. I didn't open it. Didn't unlock the phone. Didn't storm into the bathroom. I just stood there, frozen. When she came out, she noticed the look on my face and tilted her head. "Everything okay?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah, just tired." That's when I knew I was no longer her partner. I was an obstacle. but I still didn't react. Because I needed to understand why. Why would someone lie so smoothly, so consistently, so easily? I needed answers. Not drama. Not a screaming match. Truth. Cold, verifiable, undeniable truth. So I started documenting. Every date. Every odd charge. Every screenshot. Like a forensic accountant of my own heartbreak. I noticed something strange. She was rerouting some of her company's payment gateways through a different Stripe account. I'd set up her entire e-commerce system. This wasn't something that could happen on accident. The second account wasn't registered under our shared business name. It was under a shell LLC I'd never heard of. I dug deeper. Found vendor invoices that didn't match any of our internal orders. Thousands of dollars vanishing. All while she complained about rising shipping costs and told me to be patient because cash flow was tight. The truth wasn't just personal anymore. It was financial. It was betrayal on every level. Still, I kept quiet, pretended everything was normal. She'd walk in from her business trips and ask, "Did you miss me?" And I'd smile. "Always." But behind that smile, I was building something. A plan. A paper trail. A quiet little folder on an encrypted drive labeled contingency. The final straw came 2 weeks later. We were having dinner, Thai takeout, her favorite. She was distracted, barely touched her noodles. Her phone kept buzzing, face down again. She excused herself to the bedroom. A few minutes later, I heard her laugh. The laugh she used to save for me. Something told me to check her laptop. Not her main one, the backup she forgot I'd repaired a month ago. It was in the hallway closet, buried under boxes. I powered it up. She hadn't logged out of her email. A different account than the one we used for business. Inside were email threads with dozens of them. He wasn't just some fling. They were planning an apartment together. Decor ideas. Lease agreements. Even a pet adoption form. And the worst part? One email said, "Once he's out of the picture, I'll transfer the equity over. His name is still tied to some back-end stuff." Back-end stuff. Me. I wasn't her partner. I was her unpaid employee. A line of code she was trying to delete. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table until the sun came up. She came out, smiled, kissed me on the head, and said, "I'll be back Monday night. Don't wait up." I didn't say a word, just nodded, and went straight to my safe. Inside was a hard drive, and a business card from a lawyer I'd met once during a cybersecurity seminar. That was the moment I stopped being the victim. That was the moment the strategy began. I stared at that screen for hours, reading her words. Our history, reduced to strategy. A back-end issue she planned to fix by replacing me. No confrontation. No closure. Just a quiet execution, corporate style. Take what you want. Cut out the rest. Like I was a broken function in her code. I sat there, still, until my legs went numb. The air in the apartment felt different, like it didn't belong to me anymore. I looked at the shelves I installed. The espresso machine I bought for her birthday. The framed photos of us in Key West, Paris, Aspen. I remembered how she cried the night I surprised her with that trip to New York. I thought those tears were real. Turns out, they were rehearsals. But that wasn't the moment I broke. Not yet. That came the next morning. I checked our joint business email one last time before heading out. Just out of habit. And that's when I saw it, a thread she must have forgotten to delete. Subject line. Final step. Remove Jacob from cap table. She was finalizing the paperwork to erase my name from a company I'd built with her. The code, the structure, the architecture, all mine. And she was handing it over to a man named Ryan, someone with zero experience in tech, but apparently a lot of experience in stealing someone else's life. There were attachments, legal drafts, fake timelines, fabricated, verbal agreements. It was all there, the full plan to shut me out without a single conversation. That's when I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not rage, not heartbreak. Clarity. I wasn't in love anymore. I was awake. And with that clarity came calm. I closed the laptop, made coffee, fed Pixel, took a shower. And while the water ran down my face, I whispered something I didn't expect to hear from myself. You lost me, Vanessa. Not loudly, not in anger, just a quiet truth finally spoken. That afternoon, I made 3 phone calls. One to my lawyer, one to a friend who specialized in business forensics, and one to a third-party hosting provider where I quietly moved a copy of every source file, access log, and financial record I'd built over the past 3 years. No revenge. Not yet. Just insurance. She thought she'd won. That I'd walk away empty, broken, blocked. But she forgot one thing. You don't delete a man who wrote the entire system. And she never once asked what else. I kept copies of I didn't scream. I didn't slam doors. I didn't even tell her I knew. Instead, I went to work. You see, what Vanessa never realized is, I wasn't just a coder. I was her infrastructure, her firewalls, her architecture. I had built her dream, line by line, layer by layer. And now, I was going to quietly dismantle it, legally, cleanly, and permanently. First step, gather everything. I set up a new encrypted folder on a private cloud under a dummy shell corporation. Inside I placed all her altered Stripe payment records, metadata from emails she thought were deleted, server logs showing her IP activity, including access from hotel networks not listed in her trip documents, voice memos I recovered from synced backups, some she'd sent to during my birthday week. It was all there. Time-stamped, verifiable, legally admissible. Second step, secure my stake. Our business, officially, was registered 50/50ths. But like most things in her life, she forgot to read the fine print. I had filed a clause in our early partnership agreement stating that any attempt to transfer ownership without written consent from both parties would trigger an automatic freeze. She tried to cut me out, but her move had already activated the legal booby trap I'd buried years ago. She signed away nothing. In fact, she unknowingly signed herself into a financial straitjacket. Third step, assemble the team. I reached out to Nate, an old Army buddy turned cyber defense analyst. He owed me a favor. Within hours, he helped me trace Ryan Daniels. Not an investor, not a co-founder, just a failed dropshipping guru who'd gone bankrupt twice. And now, he was trying to fund his third venture with my code. Fourth step, set the bait. Vanessa had a bad habit. She reused passwords. So I planted a dummy admin panel with mirrored credentials, a clone of her actual dashboard. But everything inside was monitored. Every click, every export, every attempt to change permissions. Sure enough, 3 days later, at 2:12 a.m., Ryan accessed it. I watched him try to remove my developer keys. He failed. Then he tried again. He failed again. Then he downloaded my source code. That's when the breach triggered the notification on my lawyer's end. An automatic IP trace. A screenshot of his session. An audit trail sent directly to my inbox. Vanessa had no idea. She was still playing pretend. Still posting couple selfies from beach towns, captioned with, "Manifesting our empire." Empire? They were building it on my stolen soil. And I was tightening the noose. This step, freeze accounts, quietly. With the help of my financial attorney, I initiated a provisional freeze on all joint assets under investigation for breach of fiduciary duty. Our primary business account, the reserve funds, the back-end payout mechanisms from Shopify and Stripe. She logged in from Tulum the next day and found a banner across her dashboard. Account flagged for audit. Disbursements temporarily paused. She called me. For the first time in weeks. Her voice was calm, but strained. "Hey, did you change something with Stripe?" I paused, then said, "No, but I think someone else did." I hung up. Sixth step. Let the clock run. I didn't respond to her emails. Didn't answer her follow-up texts. Didn't bite on the bait when she said, "Can we talk when I get back?" There was nothing left to talk about. Instead, I filed the official notice of dispute. A 23-page document, attached with 14 exhibits, 3 affidavits, 2 forensic reports. My lawyer told me I had a good chance of walking away with 75% of the business, and she'd be lucky to avoid felony-level digital theft charges. But that wasn't even the endgame. You see, revenge wasn't about taking everything. It was about showing her I could take just enough to remind her she never really had control. And as all this unfolded, I was preparing for the final phase. The drop. The public, undeniable moment where her mask would fall and everyone would hear the truth. Not from me, but from her own voice. Her own words. Her own betrayal. Because while she was busy blocking me on every platform, she forgot I still had access to the one thing she never thought to secure. The podcast folder. It was a Monday morning in early fall. The sky was gray, fitting for what was coming. We were in a small civil courtroom in Austin. Vanessa sat 2 rows ahead of me, next to Ryan. She wore a muted beige pantsuit, like she thought she could blend into innocence. Her lawyer looked like someone who had never read code in his life. Mine looked like he'd memorized every single exhibit. The judge walked in. We stood. We sat. And then the hearing began. Our claim was simple. Unauthorized attempted transfer of ownership. Breach of partnership contract. Violation of fiduciary duty. Her defense? Miscommunication. She said we had talked about dissolving things. She said I had agreed verbally but got emotional after the fact. I didn't even react. Didn't look at her. Didn't blink when Ryan smirked across the room. My lawyer stood up and calmly introduced our key exhibits. Transaction logs. Account activity. Signed partnership clauses. Still, her team tried to downplay it. This could have been a misunderstanding. There's no direct intent proven. And that's when we played the audio file. It came from a voice memo she recorded to Ryan, one she had uploaded to our shared podcast folder and forgot to delete before she blocked me. The courtroom went silent as her voice echoed from the speakers. Once it's transferred, he won't have a leg to stand on. He thinks the system is built on his code, but legally we'll just call it a new iteration. Trust me, once the paperwork's done, Jacob will be history. He can cry in the shower with his cat or whatever, but he won't touch a dime. There it was. Intent. Mockery. Cold-blooded strategy. I looked at the judge. His face had changed. No longer neutral, just still, calculating, grim. Vanessa didn't look at me. She just stared at the desk in front of her. Ryan? He leaned forward, then slowly sank back like he just realized the room was on fire, and he was made of gasoline. By the time the session ended, the judge had ruled. White heavy checkmark, full freeze extended on all joint assets. White heavy checkmark, Vanessa's access to corporate tools revoked. White heavy checkmark, emergency injunction filed against Ryan's attempted product launch. White heavy checkmark, civil litigation cleared to proceed. White heavy checkmark, my share reaffirmed. 80% controlling interest granted. And the best part? The judge personally referred the case to a criminal investigator for potential fraud and conspiracy to defraud a business partner. Vanessa's face. It didn't crumble. It didn't explode. It just cracked. Like a porcelain mask that had been worn too long. She didn't speak to me afterward. She didn't even wait outside. She just vanished. But that day, as I walked out of the courthouse, I wasn't angry. I wasn't victorious. I was free. And that was worth more than any payout. It's been 9 months since that day in court. The company is doing better than ever. We rebranded, refocused, relaunched, and this time, no co-founders. Just a clear vision, clean code, and peace of mind. I moved out of that apartment, the one she filled with things and called a home. Now I live just outside Boulder, Colorado. Mountains on one side, stillness on the other. I built a small home office. Every morning, I wake up, feed Pixel, make coffee, and write. Not code, words, thoughts, memories. Because I've learned something. You can recover money. You can rebuild a business. But reclaiming your mind, your self-respect, that's the real victory. I don't hate Vanessa. Not anymore. I think she was always chasing something that didn't exist. Status, admiration, control. And people like that, they burn everything to stay warm. Even the ones who gave them fire in the first place. Ryan? He vanished. Deleted all his socials. The last I heard, he's being investigated for wire fraud in another state. Good luck with that. As for me, I've stopped looking backward. The betrayal used to haunt me at night. The voice memos. The lies. The cold, strategic way she tried to erase me. But now, I just see it as data. A bad line of code. Something that needed to be debugged so the system could finally run clean. I started journaling. Therapy too. Not because I'm broken, but because healing is a form of strength no one teaches men like me. And if there's one thing I'd want anyone to take away from this, it's this. Never assume silence means weakness. Sometimes silence is just planning. And when you betray someone who builds systems for a living, you better pray they don't build one. Just to dismantle you. But more than revenge, more than justice, what matters most is what you do after it's all over. I didn't rebuild my life to prove her wrong. I rebuilt it to prove myself right. She took everything. She blocked my number. She tried to erase me from my own legacy. But the one thing she couldn't take was the part of me that refused to disappear. And from that, I started again. Not for her. Not for revenge. But for me. Soft fade out. Calm music lingers. Final moment of silence. If this story hit home for you, If you've ever been betrayed and rebuilt from the ashes, drop a fire in the comments. And remember, your silence doesn't mean defeat. It means you're focused. And they should be scared of that. Blackheart, subscribe for more real-life revenge stories, lessons, and power moves.